kind of refer to slide deck. And, we're going to be, again, just looking at what are some of the tools that we can use through LinkedIn here. Before I proceed, I want to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral and traditional territory of the Musqueam people. And I really think about how, we are connected digitally right now. And sorry, I gotta just turn off a sound here. Can I double check? Can you hear the beeping there?
Yeah, we can hear the beeping.
Yeah. How about, okay, I think I got rid of it. Sorry about that, folks. So we're on the ancestral tradition and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And I think it's pretty kind of neat to think about how we have a privilege to be connected to learn about LinkedIn today because we're connected by this land. I always think about the term unceded. Again, how we are on land that was not given up freely and what that actually means. And a part of that is recognizing that we are guests on this land. And one way we can play our respects into the hosts of this land is just thinking about, yeah, what can we learn today that I can really make sure that I'm utilizing this time together. So it's like focusing on that one thing. So the way I like to frame it is kind of being in charge of your own learning today. So I don't know why that picture came there, or what can I kind of take in of my own basket. So I like to think about like kind of you're here, and then today it's like, what is one action you can take to think about moving forward? Like, what can you change? What can you control? So that's a little bit of what I like you to think about. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to have a Google document that you'll find in the chat right now. And I'm going to kind of flip back and forth to refer to that. And so my question to all of you is, what actions have you taken or already taken to improve your LinkedIn game? So you'll see a Google Doc. And if you kind of scroll down to page 2, and I'll show it to you in a second, I just want you to really take a second and type in there. Now, if you're not able to access the Google Doc, don't worry, you'll be able to get a copy of this later. And if you cannot do it, I'm still going to implore you to write this on a piece of paper. One thing that I like to do in practice is working with people around careers is there's really great value of explicit reflection. And that's one way you can actually engage better when you're trying to learn something. So don't worry about if it's something small, that's fine. Whatever it is, to share. And I've already put down attend a LinkedIn webinar. So I'm going to update that one unto itself. We have how many people on this call right now? 40, great. So I'm going to put 40 down. That's something that you made some time out of your busy schedule to come and participate with us. So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to write something down. There's tons of room down below as well, if you go to page 3. And then, yeah, some of you are already seeing that. If there's something that you also have done and agree with, put down a little +1 and then just make a cumulative total. So +2, +3. I think that's a great way of acknowledging other people, but also for you to stay engaged and be like, yeah, look at all these different things I've done. Like some of you might not think much about it. And if you're fighting with people in that space, no worries, we'll be able to fix it. I think half the battle is actually making a LinkedIn account. All right, I'm going to keep this train rolling because I want to make sure that some of you, if you have to get to classes for some of the students on this call, that you'll be able to. I'm going to go right to 12:50, wrap things up. Some of you, if you have to leave, you don't have to worry. You just can say, see you later. And I will also stick around though till probably about 1:15, just to answer any additional questions for some of you who have some specific concerns that I might have not addressed. The point of this document later on, if you see file and make a copy, you can actually save a copy at the very end for you to kind of come back to. There's lots of different ideas here. I'm going to highlight a few of the ones that I've been using the last while, the things that I think might be interesting to you. Some of you have attended some of my other LinkedIn sessions. I'll try to do a couple new ones, and then also get you to like even put in the chat or even unmute yourself when there's time for you to like ask for some elaborations. Because right now we're just all about kind of giving you a whole bunch of different ideas to get you excited about, how do you just do a little bit more with your LinkedIn? Some great stuff here that I actually would talk about here already. So profile pic, adding skills. I like that someone's already done some endorsements, right? Looking at PhD positions. These are all great stuff that we'll do. So let's get right into, I want to actually look at some of these ones here. Yeah, starting some conversations, sending out personal messages, liking and resharing content. These are great things, and I'm going to touch upon pretty much all of these today as well. Okay, so for me, the one reason I asked this question, what actions have you taken right now, is I think it's really important for you to recognize that you are doing some things with LinkedIn, even though all of you are at different comfort levels. So I'm going to tell you, like when I started really using LinkedIn back in 2000, I think it was like 18 or 19, 2019, I really started using it. Yeah, I was really scared to use it. I felt like, who am I to kind of engage with people? It's been a really great journey for me in the last 2 years. I'm pretty much a nobody, but through LinkedIn, I'm still being able to make a lot of connections. I think I'm up at about 5,000 connections. So I've been slowly growing kind of my audience and my network. And then there's been a lot of things that have happened out of that. So I recognize all the different tools. And part of it is I really want to be able to talk about this tool for all of you, right? In my career work and how I'm supporting students and alumni. And yeah, that's why I'm here, really excited. I think there's so much opportunity if you decide to be a little bit vulnerable and step outside of your comfort zone. But I do recognize that we need to think about a little bit about where we are. So I just want to acknowledge you're doing some stuff with LinkedIn, okay? And that's good. And you're just trying to do something more and new. And that's what the session's about today. So I have been using a framework. We've been using framework in LFS mentorship. I think it's going to apply for all of you in the mentorship programs. Thinking about experimenting, being curious, and exploring. Okay, so how can you use LinkedIn to do that? And part of that is when I look at thinking about maybe even before doing that experiment, exploring, being curious, I think about the brain quite a bit, and a little bit for some of you to think about. Your brain has kind of 3 levels, like the base level, your amygdala, that's where it's your survival, your fight or flight responses. You need safety in order to go through the next couple levels. Like your second level is thinking about your emotions and memories. And then that third level where your frontal cortex, that's a lot about your connections, your curiosity, your rational thought, a lot of the complex kind of actions and thoughts that we take. So if you think about this, I really think about, you need to feel safe with your profile or yourself, or figure out what your why is. So your amygdala doesn't hijack your brain, right? Fight or flight responses, because then you can't do the things that we're trying to do with LinkedIn of networking, learning about people, reaching out, applying for jobs, learning about job market, job trends. So I want to ask all of you to consider figuring out what you need to be safe, right? Because you cannot learn until you actually feel safe or you're in a positive state of mind. I know that's a little bit, maybe you didn't expect of talking about the brain this morning. So something like that might be like, hey, why did you come to today's webinar, and what questions do you have about LinkedIn? So if you jump down to page 4, and I think, Delaney, if you can just click on the figure out your why, it will give you the direct header. If you want, you can actually click, and actually I'll show all of you right now. Just for you to navigate the Google Doc a little bit easier, you can click this document outline and it will jump to the headers. Okay. So I want you to write down, why did you come today? Or you can answer what questions you have. This is going to allow me to like look at what we're going to be talking about. I think I'll probably be able to answer everything. And if not, I honestly believe in the document, there'll be those answers, and all of you are very capable individuals. So you'll be able to kind of dive into the document on your own. I'm always very excited to see what people want to learn and what they're coming here for. And then, yeah, if you agree with some other people, put a +1 there, and that gives me a little bit of idea of what I'm going to try to make sure I talk about. Oh, I love that. Mentees ask me for tips. What a wonderful mentor you are. You're coming here to learn yourself, to help others. Just beautiful. Give you about 30 more seconds. Again, for all the participants, you just want to go through and maybe add a +1 there so I can take a look at what we can try to address. Now, I want to be clear here. I can share some insights, but at the end of the day, these things that I'm going to talk about, sometimes it sounds with like conviction. It's my own biases. And there are things that I have tested out and experimented. Just like almost anything in life, when you actually experience these things, that's when we learn best. But I recognize it is very hard to do some of the things that I'll be talking about. So I just want to think about you on a learning continuum here, right? Just like as entering into first year to like where you are now. Some of you are still in first year. It takes time. It takes some time, but it also takes a lot of practice. And so I want to be very clear. If I knew the best way to get a job through LinkedIn, I would just tell you, right? Like I want to help all of you. I actually don't know that per se, even though some people are going to say that on LinkedIn, but I certainly can give you lots of ideas and share what I've done, not for you to do it my way, but for you to be like, okay, what works for me? Or wow, hearing that process, that's pretty intense, but then I get what he's trying to do, right? So all these things that you're bringing up here, I think we'll be able to address, but I wish I could just really just answer these questions like, this is what you do. I cannot do that. Even just the concept of someone asking to learn about best practices, I actually really try to remind myself not to say best practices, because that's actually contrary, right? A practice is like you do something to find out and then you do it again and then again, and then you learn from that. Best practices implies like there's the right strategy to do, and this is the best thing to do. So I actually just am very careful to like that best practices, that phrasing is actually a little bit not helpful for us as learners in many ways. So let's see some of the popular ones. How can I take advantage of LinkedIn? So I would like to hear a little bit more specifics. We'll talk about that. Jobs, we'll talk about some job search strategies for sure. Yeah, how to use in terms of professional social media balance. Love it. These are all things that I've wondered, still wonder, and still struggle with. And I'm here to tell you again that if an old man like myself can interact with LinkedIn, I really think all of you can do different things and slowly grow it. Where I'm at right now is nowhere near where I was 2 years ago. So I've put in a lot of time in LinkedIn, and I recognize that. And I'm not saying you need to do that either today. So we'll talk about part of this is doing these workshops is short circuiting or getting to a better place a little bit quicker. Thanks for sharing that, everyone. And I'm going to make sure at the end of this session to come back to make sure I've addressed a little bit more of this. So going back to the EBE kind of idea here, right? Experimenting on your profile. We're going to look at your headline, headshot, about, We're going to talk about curiosity, about developing your brand. So that's what people are actually asking about. And then we're going to look at exploring your network. That's the framework we're going to use to go through a bunch of ideas today. All right, let's start. Number one, experimenting with your profile. Everybody, number one, you can actually look at, what do I need to get my profile to feel a little bit safe to then engage with my network? So I'm going to just go over really quickly. Headshot. Number one, take a look at your headshot and ask yourself, is it in a 3/4, like, kind of the one strategy they say is having your face really fill it up. So it's your shoulder length, your shoulder height up to your head. And is it filling almost 3/4 of the frame? What you have to understand is the headshot, the headline, those are kind of your persistent elements. And what I mean by that, they're always going to show up all over on LinkedIn, whether you're on desktop or mobile. So the one thing people forget about is on mobile, your headshot gets very small. That's part of your brand. So sometimes you want to think about, again, zooming in a little bit on your face. I really want you to take a look at your profile right now and even look for how you're cropping it. Is there a person, another person kind of in there? Does it look like it's from a party? Those are all things that you're conveying about your brand. Listen, I wish we didn't have a system of judgment and system of like biases and these sort of things, but they do exist. And so the game I try to play again is, how do I make my profile a little bit more inviting or eye-catching? Notice what I did is I used a splash of color, pretty cheesy if you ask me, right? I used my last name with an acronym. I tried a little bit of a different thing where I use my header and I use the colors to tie things in together. And I use my last name as an acronym to kind of showcase a little bit of my values. I'll tell you, I'll spend a little bit of time on my header every 6 months, or when I feel like it's not working for me anymore. I do a flurry of activity and then I just let it go. I will also tell you that I still don't like my headline. I do not like my picture that much. I don't like my about section, and I don't let it stop me from engaging and meeting people, right? So I get it to a point where I feel comfortable and then I just kind of let it go. So yeah, headshot, take a look at that. The headline, everyone, headlines are really tricky to do. The headline I show, and I'm going to actually share my screen of my current profile. What I'm showing there is not the profile that I'm using right now. Actually, if you go to my profile, my current headline, pretty little bit straightforward. I had some imposter syndrome. I had on my previous headline, I have a conversation with someone and they were saying, like, yeah, you work at UBC, you're a world-class facilitator. And so I put that in there and I had it there for a couple months and I dropped it. So I'm telling you, I, like you, struggle with all these things. So one nice thing that you can do, take a look at your header. Number one, opportunity. A lot of us are losing opportunity on our LinkedIn profile because when you don't do anything in the header, your headline, it defaults to either your school or the job that you're doing. So a lot of students, I'll see University of British Columbia, right? And you can see right now that I actually have University of British Columbia showing up because that's where I'm working and that's where I've studied. So I'm really actually, this headline is an opportunity maybe to capture like what you're doing or what you like to do. Then I think about 3 parts, right? Second part might be like, what the work that you're doing, the values you have, the sort of skills that you have. And then I'm trying to convey maybe something like, these are things that I'm really excited about or things for you're working on in the future. This point here, you really want to think about maybe that last bit there is using some industry keywords to help the recruiters that are using LinkedIn to maybe come across your profile or headline. Most headlines, people write about the job you're doing rather than writing about the job you want. I'm going to say that again. Most headlines write about what you're doing, then that actually doesn't convey any evidence or builds trust with prospective employers. So one strategy, again, sometimes write about the industry you want to go into or you're passionate about, because that's what you're trying to connect into, especially if you're pivoting into a different industry. Okay. So notice the header, which is the background there, that is also underutilized. It's a billboard actually to tell a little bit about yourself. So if I go to University of British Columbia, everyone take a look at what happens. If I go to the desktop version, and I'll come back to this tool. If you're not following this page, it's great. And if I go to alumni, everyone watch what happens. Like it starts combing through the 247,000 alumni. And you can see the default, there's space that is an opportunity lost. I find a lot of students use kind of like now UBC background, which is fine. Vancouver, people use a lot of like outdoor nature, that's fine. But you can see this sort of makes an impression on people. And some people, again, depending on how you want to put on your profiles, notice if you have their security settings on really high, which I appreciate, notice it also, your brand, you can't see that person as well. And so you can see the choices, even the cropping that happens, where right now this might be a good picture, but if it zooms in on a like mobile, you really lose kind of, again, your brand. So you can see a lot of people don't actually change the header. And I think that there's really little excuse for that now because, you know, you can use something like Canvas. The last thing I'm going to talk about, so you can see, look, just by scrolling, right, those impressions that you're making. And so again, if you actually look at, like, if you're engaging with someone, like, so see, look at this. When you leave a message, look at what happens if you don't have that 3/4 kind of face shot, then it's really small on your desktop. I will also say, everyone, these are just my strategies. So, you know, if as long as you understand what you're doing with your headshot, then just do that with conviction. So like maybe someone's trying to be a hand model. Well, then yeah, maybe I'd show a picture of my hand and that breaks that rule, or, you know, those sort of things, right? So again, these are just, again, my strategies that I'm using. But what I want you to hear is how much intention I'm thinking about before I post something. And then I just kind of let it go until I need to kind of redo it, right? So I'm trying to make it important, but then it's not ultimately. All right. Let's go to the Google Doc, and I'm going to get you now to look at all the different versions. So I talked about the headshot, the brainstorming your brand. I didn't really expand on that, but I love this article. I came across it the other day on LinkedIn. It's from 1997. I still think it's very relevant. Talks about the brand. It talks about thinking about you as a company. Really fascinating stuff. And what I realized after doing a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, you know, I'm actually doing myself a disservice, everyone, when I'm not actually thinking about my story and how I'm practicing conveying that story to others and how I can influence others to like understand who I am and what I bring to the table. That's all part of my brand. So I really pushed back against this idea of brand because it feels like you're almost bragging. But I realized, like, no, I'm trying to reward myself for everything that I've done to get more opportunities. That's what I hope you can start considering for your brand. You need to influence prospective employers to be intrigued about what you're bringing to the table and what's unique. Well, that's really hard because often I'm like, I don't know what I have, or am I unique, or is this something? So what I liked about LinkedIn is the tool. By doing my headline, my header, and some of the other stuff we're going to talk about, it's actually building false confidence myself. It's me being more safe. And that's something I realize is really important. If I don't know my story, if I don't know my brand, who will? No one's going to take care of my brand as well as I am. So that means I have to put some effort into that. And that, I hope some of you can think a little bit about that. And that's where LinkedIn's been a great tool for me. Okay, so going back to this, I'm going to be quiet for a second and just let you read this list. The yellow is what I've kind of talked about already. And I'm going to actually expand on one. The Canva, if you click that, there's free templates where it gives you the exact sizing for the banner and you just type in. So you can make a really quick banner for your LinkedIn profile. So you get a little bit of more vividness. And it's funny, I did this. I was like, oh, this is a hokey and cheesy. And then I literally had a colleague of mine right away say, hey, like, really liked your profile, right? Just because it popped a little. So again, I think those are easy additions to make on your profile. Yeah, go ahead, read this list. And again, this is not everything list, but these are things that you can experiment with. And so put a +1 down. And if you like more than one, again, add something. But my goal is for you to do one of these things right away after this session, sometime this week, over this weekend, maybe even right now, as you're listening to me drone on and on about this. Thanks, Delaney. Again, if you want to follow us in the chat, Delaney's dropping in the actual sections in the chat there. And you can always, again, showcase the outline to jump around. All right, let's see which one is the winner. I'll give you about 30 seconds to go through and look at it. At this point, if you have some questions, like clarification questions, toss them into the chat. That way I can answer them right now, or at the very end of this webinar, I'll make sure I'll address your questions. I'm going to let you know just how much I struggle. I put some of them, I've done all of these ideas, by the way. I've done my about section. I put it low because I've rewritten my about section like 4 times now. My current one, it just makes me cringe. I think I use a Star Wars thing. And you know what? I'm okay with it. Again, with what I think are poor things, I'm still connecting to 5,000 people. So it's doing the job. It's not doing the best job maybe, but it's doing the job. That's all I need. Don't forget to peek onto the second page there. There's a few more there. Give you about 10, 15 more seconds. Really try to select one, right? Hold yourself accountable. Like pick one that you're like, yeah, I think I can do this. This isn't too hard. Or challenge by choice. What's something here that's really scary, that's outside your comfort zone, that you're like, yeah, let's just do it. Again, experimentation. I experimented with all of these. And then you start figuring what works better for you. Yeah, the brand thing, that's my favorite. That article, I love it. And really thinking about that brand and the impression I'm trying to make. These are easy ones. I think the banner is like just super easy to do. Great. Headline, I've given you an article to practice some headlines. So those are the popular ones. Yeah, asking a peer, mentor, manager for feedback. I've done that. So great to see it popular. It's interesting that the brand one is popular today. Usually that's not as popular. So it's always interesting to see from session to session. Okay, thank you for doing that. You can take a moment and even copy and paste that into your calendar to say, this is what I'm going to be doing or something like that. Like always thinking about what you can do in that regard. All right, so we talked about experimentation. Notice again, all these things, I've just done it. I've actually wrote out the process. I've done it, looked at what happened, and then said what I'm going to do next time. So again, that experimentation. I want to ask all of you to maybe check in with your why, right? So again, maybe the question is, what do you need in your profile to feel safe? So I remember, again, I spent some time with my headline and my header and my about to get it to a level that I wasn't completely satisfied, but I felt like, okay, I put in some time, and that made me feel safe to then actually engage, network, post, et cetera, et cetera. Because if you don't feel safe, you can't do some of the higher learning stuff that we're going to talk about right now. So thinking about, the next frame is being curious, right? So this is now developing your brand and also learning from others to develop your brand. Sometimes, we haven't developed our own voice, and it's just actually, learning and seeing what other people are doing. So the way I look at it is there's always people above me on LinkedIn, and there's people above me in experiences. And I don't look at them now of like jealousy and envy. I still do sometimes, but I look at more of like asking questions like, oh, how did they get there? What did they do? I'm trying to learn from them and actually just look at what they've done and just kind of copy it sometimes. I know we don't want to use the word plagiarize at UBC, but essentially what you can do is adopt some of their strategies to test out for your own. So we're going to talk a little bit about that curiosity. So I'm going to show you a couple of things, and it's going to go by a little fast, but you'll be able to kind of Google some of these later. So check this out. I'm going to first show you about some of the tools that you can use for your brand. So sometimes, you can actually think about, do you know the keywords for the industries or companies or the positions you're applying for? So I'm going to utilize, the 750 million people on LinkedIn and the data that they're collecting for me to help create my brand. So everyone, on the desktop version always has much more robust features, but the mobile has some features, of course, that you can't access as well. See this, everyone? Hit this more, and you build a resume. So I've practiced a bunch of these, and I'm going to put create from profile. I'm not actually going to use this resume, but there's some great stuff here. Everyone, the first one is job title. Can someone put something in the chat? Give me a job title. First person, give me a job title. Someone give me a job title in the chat. Software engineer. Okay, watch this. So I might go software engineer, and see, I'm already learning the different types of titles that exist in companies, because these are actually all from LinkedIn library, right? So their database, right? So I might actually, maybe I've been using the wrong terminology, so I'll educate myself that way. But then I'll go, okay, software engineer. So I'm going to click that. And then what I do is I put apply. And then as you can see, look at on the right side here, see the resume insights. Sorry, I'm going to just close this for now. See the resume insights. It tells me if this was my profile it's pulling from, it's found one keyword skill in my entire profile. So I'm not doing actually a good job of writing my profile to match what the recruiters might be looking for, right? So on LinkedIn, there's people pay like big money for, to use their database to actually then search for prospective like employees. So right now, what you can do is you might be using the word like collaboration when you think that's communication, but maybe that's not the keyword that some industries are using. So you're just teaching yourself what are kind of the market out, and that's branding too, right? So if you actually go back to this, like check out, it tells me the suggested keywords: software development, engineering, computer science, analytical skills, programming, Java, C++. And then look at, you hit show more, and it tells me even more. These are the keywords that their LinkedIn is noticing in job postings and job descriptions. So I can start. Now, listen, I don't want to just copy and paste them in there, but I can certainly pepper them into my profile, and that's going to help my brand. And I can also start thinking about my resume cover letter. I'm also going to show you another thing on your profile, the skill section. So again, I might pepper some of those keywords in here as well. You don't want to just like do that alone, because that's not, good. That's not that's not going to be a good thing, because if you're just peppering keywords for someone to showcase yourself, you still have that substance as well. So if you go down to the very bottom, you can also go to your skill section, right? So you can take a skills quiz, you can add a new skill, and you get a chance to put 3 different skills. So, it's nice that you have these skills. You want probably at least 1 endorsement, but I've also dabbled around. You can have up to, I think, 50 skills. So some of those skills that you saw, the technical ones, you can actually make sure, are they in your skill set? Or, for some of the engineers on this call, you could actually take a quiz that will then show you a level of your C++ skills, for instance, right? So this is, again, part of my brand. Like if I'm saying I'm a facilitator and I'm involved in programs, like I've these sort of things to on my skill set there. I would say one thing when I did this early, I would pay real attention to this because sometimes I have similar things, and what it does, it kind of like almost diffracts like all the, like there's too many things for people to look at, right? So, but I've been testing these things. So I've taken a Microsoft Word quiz and a keynote, and I don't know if it, like some recruiters, I think LinkedIn says 20% more people see your profile. I've heard like debatable things, and I'll be honest, like I don't often go down here, but certainly recruiters, again, as they're using a system to kind of search for things, it can help. And that's still part of your brand though, right? Even if it doesn't work, you're still better understanding what you are offering and what you're doing. One other thing I want to talk about your brand, everybody, is please do this right now. Go to your profile. Oh, what's going on? It's not. There we go. Sorry about that. Go to your profile. Desktop version. See this, everyone? Edit public profile and URL. Please check yours out right now and personalize your URL, right? So it will default to something with like random strings of characters. Hit that pencil and you can change that to for your URL. I think this is a great job search strategy. Rather than putting your address on your resume, put in the hyperlink of your LinkedIn, and then I mean, anytime I get you to see visuals, right, like this, I mean, that tells a little bit more about my brand and story as well, right? So again, that's great. Also, you can edit your visibility, everyone, like all these sort of things here, right? Your privacy settings as well. So again, check that out. And yeah, make a customized URL right now. That doesn't take much time. That takes like a second. Okay, one other thing I want to talk about. I did the skills match. Oh yeah. Right now, all of you, actually, I'll go to here. For undergraduates at University of British Columbia, Vancouver campus, you have this year an opportunity to do LinkedIn Learning for free. So UBC, if you just Google LinkedIn Learning like this, and I'll put this into the chat in a second. So it uses your CWL. And you can go there and you'll be able to log in. Oh man, I gotta do my privacy settings. Oh, denied me. You have to be a student. I have a staff access as well. And then we actually have curated at the center a whole bunch of pathways for you, but there's lots of great courses there. And so you can do that in small chunks. And also for some of you, if you're not sure about some industries, why not test drive some of the actual courses that are associated with those industries to get a better idea? So again, this is only for this year. It's a combination of AMS and UBCV. And I would really urge you to take advantage of this. I know a lot of students aren't, and tell your friends as well. If for mentors, if you, let's say, live in Vancouver, go to the, open up your VPL, Vancouver Public Library, you get a free LinkedIn Learning, they call it lynda.com. So you can access it with your local library too. So very easy, again, to access these sort of things. And LinkedIn also offers up free kind of LinkedIn Learning segments every now and then. Okay. I'm going to stop there and I'm going to switch to ideas time. I covered the resume builder, gives you kind of 10 skills, customizing your LinkedIn URL, access to LinkedIn Learning, and then selecting your top 3 skills. And I've hyperlinked some ideas in here, some examples, some posts as well. The mobile feature, like recording your name. So if you have like a name that people do not pronounce well, those are a little touch that you can do. I've utilized all of these things here. And again, you put in the chat later on if you have any questions. I mean, put some questions in the chat right now, but I'm going to be quiet and let you select a couple of things that you want to test out. Yes, Wyatt, you will have access to this document as well, but I would also save a copy just in case. I usually keep it open for a while. So go ahead and select what's one thing that you want to do right away. Again, if you have any questions or clarifications of some of these ones, a little bit more engaging and requires a little bit more work. I've shared with you some ideas of how to post with text versus images and hyperlinks. I even give you some strategies of what can you write about? And these are all things I've struggled with. And it's, I think, the hardest thing for most people to do. One last thing for your brand. I recognize that when I share certain things, I'm actually influencing people. It is scary every time I post, but I've gotten used to it. And actually, what I really like now as an introvert, I'm really shy. I actually quite like posting on LinkedIn because I'm writing and I get to actually like draft out what I'm saying. And we'll talk more about that in the next section as well when we're networking. Okay, I'm going to be quiet and let you read. It's page 12 and 13. I'm going to acknowledge at this point, there was a lot of activity on the first section, right? Like in terms of experimenting, and this be curious section. Usually when I do these sessions, these ideas are a little bit harder. But I really want to encourage all of you. Again, I've tested out all these sort of things. And when they don't work, I'll tell you, it's actually not that bad. Like I'm not really losing anything. Like as long as you're just thinking about, am I posting something that is actually, maybe not offensive or, like maybe not controversial, but I shouldn't say that because some people post controversial things just to, get that engagement. It's more just like, do you know why you're posting it and what are your reasons? And if you understand that, then yeah, go ahead and try it. It took me a long time to feel comfortable posting. And I've set different goals. It used to be once a month, then I went to once a week. Then I went from July to about October, I said 5 days a week, which was too intense. And now I think I'm down to maybe once a week again. So I'm just, again, showcasing you that in order for you to really utilize this tool, it's just, again, practice, practice, practice. And it depends on what you want to do. So in the last while, for me, it's really just practicing writing and networking with people. That's it. That's my main goal. And some of you are like, okay, job search, those sort of things is my goal. There's lots of people to follow on LinkedIn to learn from as well. I think there's just a lot of value from what's essentially a free resource. I will also say it's a weird one. For my mental health, it's actually been really good because people are a little bit more positive, whether that's fake or not on LinkedIn. And it's been really good, especially during the pandemic, like the height of the pandemic. I stopped going on Twitter a lot and just spent more time on LinkedIn. And it was really healthy for me, I realized later, which I didn't expect. And that's what happens when you're curious and you're exploring, like and experimenting, you find out things that you did not expect. Okay, so leader in the clubhouse is the LinkedIn URL. Yeah, most people are like, that's pretty easy to do. And again, these things are pretty tough down here, but I want to encourage you, like, try posting something, right? It doesn't always have to be congratulatory. When you're building your brand, most people are really scared still to post on LinkedIn. It's changing now. You see a lot of creators more now in this space, certainly more than 2 years ago. But I see there's lots of students out there doing good stuff with their posts, right? Or maybe again, celebrating someone else for what they've done or putting a spotlight on someone. Those are ways that you can do it if you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to talk about myself. Again, I linked to some examples that I've done so you get a sense. I'm not saying these are good or bad, but I've been practicing different things and just seeing what it is. And it is fascinating. Like, you're going to get, once in a while, you'll get some posts where you get into, the thousands of views, it can happen with some consistency. So it is quite surprising, again, the number of engagement you can get in terms of in building your network that way. Okay. 12:48, we're going to the last part here. And again, for some of you students, if you have to leave, I apologize. Let's go to exploring your network. This is where, for me personally, I love LinkedIn. And I think about a lot of these. I love Liz and Molly stuff, right? Like, you know, sometimes when I'm networking, reaching out, like, what if this doesn't work versus what if it does? And also, like, if you don't ask versus if you do ask. And I'm going to speak just for myself personally, like the concept of self-advocacy, like, I don't need permission to reach out to people, or it's okay to try to reach out to people because LinkedIn is a networking platform. And I just kind of let go of like, yeah, some people are going to ghost me and some people are going to say yes. But it took me a long time to get there. I acknowledge, like, for me, being raised by Korean parents, always told to, like, you know, work hard, show up. And in Korean culture, we're respectful to our elders, people's in position of power. And I always thought, like, who am I to bother someone else? So I've really had to learn a lot about being an advocate for myself. And that sometimes means, like, there's some people out there who do want to help, and learning from others and reaching out. And I still struggle with it, but I've really been working on that. And I try to set a personal goal to almost have like a coffee chat with someone new, maybe once every couple weeks, sometimes once a week. And I really like that. It's been good for me. It's been healthy for me, and I've learned a lot. But it's required a lot of courage. So I really like that idea. If you don't ask versus if you do ask, right? Possibilities. Some of you are thinking about jobs. Part of your job search is still networking, right? And it's a skill that a lot of people don't utilize as much. And that's really, actually, sorry, I got ahead. That's really what, mentorship is about, learning from others. So, I think it's important. So let's go a little bit into what that looks like. I'm going to just show you the one main tool that I love. It is that University of British Columbia Alumni Page. So everyone, if you take a look at this, if you're not using this right now, I have 247,000 people. I can select alumni, and you need to get good at your Boolean search. It's just like going to the library. Remember, in first year, you might have been like food, right? Or nutrition, and you learn a little bit. So I might go software engineer, use that, and I can literally filter through a ton of things: where they live, where they work, what they study, what they do, how are you connected, what are they skilled at. So I can actually, part of my brand is, first of all, just understanding market research. In careers, we say you can't be what you can't see. So I might look at, okay, I want to just know about the people who are in Vancouver. I look at the companies that are involved, and I now start scrolling through some people. And it's not necessarily like I want the job where they're at to. It might be I want to understand like what they did in between. And I might learn about new companies that I've never heard about. So again, AppSeller has been in the news recently, right? A huge tech company from UBC. Carl Hansen is one of the founders. So I'm going to look at his activity. I might look at the activity just to see, are they on LinkedIn a lot? So, I actually write and track some of this stuff in an Excel document, which sounds really creepy, but in many ways, I'm just organizing my networking research. And I might see, okay, not a lot of info, not on LinkedIn a lot. So if I direct message this person, probably low probability of even hearing back from this person. But I might go, oh, Clearbank, I've never heard of that company. Proxy, never heard of that. So I might click that and actually maybe follow this company, right, to gain some insight. I don't want to follow them. And look at the people and jobs. So it just kind of goes down this rabbit hole. But if you start organizing your research, you're really increasing your understanding of what's out there, what the hiring landscape is looking like, and what the jobs are, right? So again, if I was in LFS and I was looking at, I want to look at sustainability, for example. And again, same thing. I can start looking now. It's down to 9,400 alumni. I want to look at people in Vancouver. So it's just like you're searching for a restaurant, really. And I'm going to go through and look at people who catch my eye. Some people are doing a real good job with their banners, by the way. And then I'm just looking through. So I might look at, okay, maybe that's too broad of a term, and I have to figure out, so to be a little bit more specific. So I'm going to click on this person, because in the Sustainable Agriculture and Environment program, and just get a sense of like, okay, what are they doing? Oops, sorry. It's really freezing here. There we go. So I look at them, and I'll also say that I used to be very shy clicking on people's profiles because I could see that you're clicking, but I think that's actually a great setup, that you click on someone now, and then you actually could reach out to them. And you know, when someone looks at my profile, I'm not like, what are you doing? Look at my profile. You're kind of like, oh, what are you? And it's kind of, you're almost like, oh, you didn't even ask anything or reach out to in some ways, which is kind of weird, right? But here's someone who is working for PwC, and I look at some of the internships, the education, and they went from GRS, and they didn't do any master's program, but they did a professional management program in 2021. But I'm like, really cool. They're in consulting, which I didn't think I could do from GRS, right? They worked in public sector for a bit. And if I get the courage, then I might either, there's different options, everyone. If you're like, okay, I want to follow them, but I want to know more about them, or I want them in my feed, you can help curate your own feed. You can hit follow, and or I can hit connect. So I can hit connect, and I can add a note. In this case, I'm not going to, I'm just send a note there, because at the end of the day, if she doesn't connect with me, I'm going to be okay, right? So that's one strategy that you can do. You can start following recruiters and get a sense of what's out there. So just to wrap it up, because we're at the 12:54 mark, I'm going to just ask you to do two things for me. Go through and just say, what's one idea that you want to do while I talk over you? You can look at the difference between connect and follow, liking someone's post. Something you can do is follow a company or people work at the company, and just like and comment. Typically, you want to comment more than 5 words, and that gets a different level of engagement. You can endorse someone's skills. I mean, when people express gratitude on my, like, it's very rare when someone writes something nice on my comments on a post, do I go like, oh my goodness, who are you? Like, I actually can't help but view you in a different light. Like, literally, someone on this session, you could compliment me on one of my posts, and I will now be connected with you a little bit differently. I find that happens. Oh, even if I know that's your strategy, right? So again, there's a whole bunch of different things. Finding a mentor. Listen, you're in a mentorship program. You can actually search all of LinkedIn. I didn't even talk about all of LinkedIn. Like, if you put software engineer, and what I do here is put see all results, it gets crazy. You can search people, jobs, posts down to the 24 hours a week. So this to me is my favorite now, going through that, where I can search so much information about people. I can prepare much better when I network with people too, because I can learn about you and then kind of drop in those pieces of information in there without you kind of knowing that I know those things about you. There's ways to kind of actually build up rapport with people by just doing research. I mean, you can look at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn if you really wanted to, if you're trying to like approach different people. So I like to think about, who are 3 new people I want to learn from, who are 3 industry people, or 3 new industries, 3 new companies. Our brain works well in 3s. Okay, wrapping up here. There's tons of other stuff here. If you can do me one last thing at the very end here, on page 17, can you just share with me, this is really important for me and our mentorship team today. What's one takeaway from today's session? Doesn't matter, it can be small or big. And like I said, I'm going to stay around here for another 15 minutes, probably even half an hour, to talk about any other questions you might have. But I just want to encourage all of you to like experiment, be curious, and explore. Like it's a really interesting tool. And yeah, you don't have to be too scared about it. It's just like, just work on building your confidence to do one thing and then another thing. And then someday you might be talking about a LinkedIn webinar with a whole bunch of people about what you like about it as well. Maybe not, but someday it can lead to a job, right? There's definitely, we're seeing more and more companies using LinkedIn, more for postings as well, and recruiters use it quite heavily. It's a very popular tool. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks for you for sharing. I'm reading your takeaways. I really appreciate that. And yeah, just have some courage and have some excitement. Listen, if whatever you're doing and testing out, it's like a chore. Like I use the rhyme all the time. If it's a chore or bore, find another door. Like you got to do something different. So again, please connect with me on LinkedIn. Happy to do that. You'll see that I'm actually writing and trying to do things for you to see and learn from, and I'm testing things out all the time. And yeah, if you want, I'm actually doing a LinkedIn webinar next week for the Center for Student Involvement Careers. Tell your people, your friends about it. And I wish you best of luck with the rest of your mentorship program. Mentorship is such a huge strategy for job search. And so some of you are asking, like, how do I find a job? I think if you're you need to utilize multiple things, and networking and mentorship is a big piece of that, right? So you're doing it. So thanks a lot, everybody, and have a great weekend. And like I said, now's the time for you to ask some questions or put in the chat. And yeah, I appreciate you coming to this session.